What up, y'all? It's Dev and Ziggy. Ziggy couldn't miss this. We're from Mtg, and we're here to talk about the top 25 cards in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. And yeah, we got it down to 25. At first I thought this is going to have to be one of our top 50 videos from like a long time ago. I'm talking back in the day. When I was young, I'm not a kid anymore. Do you remember that song, Ziggy? It was a good jam. You weren't alive for that. But yeah, we got it narrowed down at the end of the day. Got it figured out. So does this set slice like a ninja? Cut like a razor blade, or will we watch our broken dreams dance in and out of the beams of a neon moon? I defy you to get that reference. There's no way you do. Ziggy does. He's a cultured young gentleman, but you? I doubt it. I doubt it. Honestly, I don't hold it against you. You don't get that reference because you're not A, old, and B, from a hick town. So good for you on both counts. But we should probably stop with the intro. We've got a lot of cards to talk about today because it's one of my top 25s. That means we're actually talking about 700 cards. You know how I do it. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Top 25, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Hey, and by the way, like and subscribe. Dude, I would like that if you would do those things. It would make me very happy. I spend a lot of time making video. So, just to help me out real quick, like, subscribe, be good. But let's go ahead and get to the honorable mentions. And I'm going to do you a favor. I'm not going to have 20 honorable mentions. I thought at first that's exactly what I was going to do, but then I had 10, and I've actually pared it down to 5 entries on the honorable mentions list. I don't know how I pulled that off, but let's go ahead and run through these really quick. Now, first, Brilliant Restoration. I'm not the most brilliant person in the world to be putting this card on any list, but I like it. Can I like Magic cards? I don't think it's a very good Magic card, but I personally like it, and I want to live my replenished dreams from 20 years ago with this card. Can I? Will you allow me to do that? Yeah, the card's not good, but you make a YouTube list, and you put whatever card you want on there. This is in my honorable mentions. Aside from that, Ishin. This card does look like some pretty good-ish. I don't know if it's going to be very good in Standard, though, to be honest with you, but I like the idea of a Pain Harmonicon. Somebody called it that. I didn't come up with that. I saw somebody on the internet say that on like Twitter, like some random person. So I don't. I'm sorry that I'm not like giving you the credit for that, but Pain Harmonicon is the best name for this card that I've seen so far. That's good-ish. But same joke twice. Let's move on to Mirror Box here. I know I'm probably making a lot of people groan by putting this card in the honorable mentions. But honorable mentions are mostly for cards that I don't think are gonna do a whole lot in Standard, at least at like the top tiers of Standard. I don't really think this is destined to see a lot of play there, but maybe there's some wacky combo. This is mostly for Commander players, for Brawl players, and for janky people like me who have a Twitch stream. All I'm saying is at the end of the day, I don't see much in it in Standard. See, that's how you make a joke. But anyway, next is Shigeki. I think this card could, I just like saying its name. First of all, Shigeki. It sounds like a naughty word somehow. Like I kicked him right in his Shigeki. That dumb Shigeki. I don't know. Am I gonna get demonetized? See how terrible that sounds? I think this card is like better than it looks, but I don't know if it's worthy of making the list. Although some really bad stuff made the list, so we'll get there. But the last entry on the list is 2-drop artifacts. I've written down. That's what it says. It says 2-drop artifacts. But I guess if pressed what I'm talking about here, I'd probably say Patchwork Automaton is one of them. Card could do work in multiple formats. I think the ward is better than people think it is. Containment Construct. Look at the text box on this card. When you discard a card, you just play it. It seems like it has the potential to literally be one of the best cards in the set, possibly. And then Automated Artificer, which seems like a step down from Containment Construct, but it's still a 2-mana rock in Standard, and I don't care if it only helps you cast other artifacts. Still excited about it. I like 2-mana rocks in Standard. Again, I can like cards. That's why they go in the honorable mentions. So. But of course, that means we have to start the actual list now. I think I actually went through those kind of fast. But then when I sit down to edit, we're going to be like 7.5 minutes into the video by this point in the video. That's how it always works. Especially if I keep babbling. So let's move on to the list here. And the funny thing about the list sometimes, like the beginning of the list, is that there's a bunch of cards I really like in the honorable mentions. And then there's a bunch of cards at the beginning of the actual list that I don't like as much, but I still feel like they need to be on the actual list itself, like Jin Gitaxias. In this case, yes, yes, boo, but why are you booing me? I'm right. This card is not, it's number 25 on my list. And I feel like, okay, there's 302 cards in this set, and a lot of them are pretty good. So like if a card made the list at all, I'm giving it some credit. But even though Jin Gataxias is one of like the chase mythics in this set, a lot of people are super excited about it, mostly for lore reasons, but some people really want to play with a card that has that text box, and I can't blame you, but I still don't think the card does that much in most formats. I really don't at all. End of the day, I'm sorry. I mean, again, the text box is awesome, but like Hullbreaker Horror is in the format. It's just a better thing to play. It's a better thing to reanimate. It's a better thing to ramp into, like kind of no matter what you're doing. However, again, I'll give the card some credit. There's a reason it's on the list. Once it is on the board, the only thing that's certain is death from Jin Gataxias. You see what I did? That's the best pun in the video. It might be. We're front loaded with these puns here. Number 24 is Hinata Dawn Crowned. I like this way better than Jin Gataxias. The actual abilities on the card are really good. Like the non-keyword abilities, you know, your stuff costs one less, their stuff costs one more. I've kind of compared this to like a mini Thalia. It gives all your guys Ward 1, sort of. And that could be really sweet, but like, is there a Jeskai deck that wants it? I don't know. It's the art's cool. It's some sort of like weird eldritch flying dragon. The art is freaky, but like at the same time, despite how cool the text box is it all worth the 4-mana package? Maybe. I'm not saying no. That's why the card's on the list. Maybe. We'll see. However, if I had to come up with a pun for the card, it would be Hinata good card. It's just there. It's right there. Why would you not take it? But anyway, let's move on to number 23. I had to check my math. Let's look at a big fat Kami up next. Let's take a look at Kami of Transience. This card looks awesome to me. This card looks so good to me. It's one of the better looking enchantresses that I've seen in a minute. They just slap trample on it, so once it gets huge, they can't just jump block it, which is a problem with a lot of, like a whole lot of enchantresses. You have to put something on them that gives them trample. It just has the trample. And another thing that I've said before, and I'll repeat again here because it's top 25 video, I have to repeat important points about cards, is that a lot of times Enchantress decks only have like 12 or 16 creatures. And if those creatures die, it's bad. It's a bad problem that you have there, friend. So this can just come back. Just come back and allow you to start like building up your Voltron again. And it's not actually too hard to make it come back. So I don't know. I think this thing could be really very good. And I'm talking about multiple formats. Historic, like modern, there might be some action for this. It's just a 2-mana investment to get on the table. And it can get pretty big pretty quickly. But this list is mostly about standard. And I think this card could actually do some work there where we have some pretty sweet auras and just enchantments to proc this thing. Number 22 is Goro, disciple of Ryusei. I don't know why I have to say his name like that like every time, but it just popped into my head like 4 days ago. And now every time it comes, Goro, disciple of Ryusei, and that's how his name is read in my head. Good card though. This can just give anything you play for the rest of the game haste, which is fair enough. It's pretty good. It's not bad for just an extra mana. You get like Kenrith's red ability, and that proved to be like really good a lot of the time, but you also just get to like just make dragons. Whoops, I'm an aggro deck and I drew a land for the turn that would normally kill me, but instead I also just make a dragon. Who cares? I'll just make a dragon. Sure. So like I think that's actually kind of sick. You know, it's not hard to enable or anything. Just like, hey, pay some mana, get dragons, and that's am I wrong in thinking that could be like potentially stupidly good? It's just, card looks awesome to me. But while we're talking about a bunch of weird creatures, like 25 through 20 is all just weird legends for the most part, and Kami of Transience, which is also a weird creature. But here at 21, let's look at Greasefang. This card is really actually good. This was going to be on the sleepers list, but I think it's just too like obviously good to be on the sleepers list, and it's good with good cards. Like it's really awesome with a Seeker's Chariot, obviously. You know, reanimate your Seeker's Chariot and get 2 cats. Pop it back to your hand, play it again to get 2 more cats. But just the stat line is kind of okay, right? It's an Orzhov legend, so I am obligated to like it more. Orzhov's my guild. But again, the stat line's cool. The ability is hyper stupid, you know. Being able to reanimate vehicles is good with things outside of a Seeker's Chariot, but just the Seeker's Chariot interaction is pretty silly, right? So there's a lot of things I like about this, aside from the fact that it looks like a Saturday morning cartoon. But it is Bikermice from Mars. Card actually looks boss. We used to use that as a superlative 20 years ago. So let's move on to number 20, which is our first. We're going to cheat. We're going to cheat this time. And look at Reinforced Ronin and Hotshot Mechanic at the same time. These are both 1 mana 2 power guys, and I really didn't want to split the list because slots were at a premium this time around. So I'm just going to put both these guys on the list at the same place. I think Reinforced Ronin has some issues. Like, even if you get the dream start of double Reinforced Ronin in the first 2 turns of the game, you still don't have anything on your board when your turn 2 is over, and that's not great. But being able to just dash these, they're really good against like sorcery speed removal and wraths and stuff like that. And later on, when they become consequential, you just discard them for cards, and that's good in your aggro deck. So like, pretty good signpost for mono red right there. As is the 1-drop red Saga. I just want to shout that one out real quick. 1-drop red Saga, also decent 1-drop. But Fox McCloud, also ridiculous. There are multiple reasons that you might want to play an artifact creature on turn 1 in this new standard, thanks to a bunch of new Kamigawa cards, right? There's a lot of fun starts that you can get that involve this, but at the end of the day, Savannah Alliance, another 1 mana 2/1 for these mono white aggro decks is probably in some ways relevant, and that's all that really the card needs to do, but it does way, way more than that. I hear it can even do a barrel roll. Number 19, is Disruption Protocol here. Now, this could just be a cancel. These be a cancel, a normal thing. It's going to be really easy to enable this card starting on turn 2 and just make it a counterspell. And I think when you're talking about like super easy to enable, just reprinting of counterspell in standard, you got a card that should make the list somewhere. I don't think it's going to be the best card in any deck that it's in, but I think it's going to be one of the most important cards in any deck that it's in. Oh, speak of the Moon Snare prototype, and she appears. Number 18 is this card, the old Spring Leaf Drum of the set, but probably worse than Spring Leaf Drum. But worse than Spring Leaf Drum is still worthy of seeing play. And hell, I can't discard my Spring Leaf Drum on turn 8 to get tempo or whatever. That can be really important some of the time. I actually think the semi-removal, semi-tempo mode on this is going to be important a non-zero amount of the time. Sounds like a not controversial statement, but you'd be surprised how many people are like, you'll never use the 5 mana. Yeah, you will. You'll use it. You'll use it some of the time, I promise. But, we're looking at a format right now where multiple decks needed 1-drop artifacts. Multiple decks need 1-drop ramp if they can get it. And this does that. This actually does that. And yeah, you got to enable it. But these days, you have to enable your turn 1 ramp a la like Jaspera Sentinel. And I think having a tool like Spring Leaf Drum in the format is going to be really important, possibly for multiple decks. And this actually is, I stand by it, one of the best cards in the set. But number 17 is Lion Sash, and I'd be lying if I didn't say this card wasn't pretty freaking good, and I am so sorry for always taking the joke that's right in front of me. So many of you support me on Patreon. So many of you have watched my stuff for like 7 years, and you stuck with me, and I repay you with the joke that's directly in front of me every time. And I'm sorry about that, but one way or the other, from this card back to Scavenging Ooze, they all play their part in the great circle of life. That was a slightly better joke, but probably not. Still not funny, right? But anyway, the card. How good is the card, Dev? It's pretty good. I'm holding back on saying this card is in like the top 10 cards of the set, but the card is easily one of the better ones in this set. But number 16 is Selfless Sam. Speaking of white 2-drops, yeah, I do think this is slightly better in some cases. Now, hear me out. Please hear me out. Lion Sash and cards like Scavenging Ooze often see sideboard play in aggro or mid-range decks, right? This card will see 4 of main deck play in aggro decks, and even some mid-range decks or some combo decks, depending on what pieces they need to protect and all that stuff. So even though it is probably a worse Selfless Savior, I still think Selfless Samurai is one of the best white creatures in this set, hands down, and in most cases isn't necessarily going to be better than Lion Sash in all game states, but it is probably going to see a lot more main deck play. But I guess we'll just keep talking about 2-drops. Number 15 is Blade of the Oni. This was almost on the sleepers list, and then I found out that like everyone's talking about it. I was kind of amazed by that. And I'm not the only one that's seen the power level I'm not the only one that's seen, there it is, the power level of this card. I did it again. I took the joke that's right in front of me. Am I the only one? Little Melissa Etheridge. Either way, though, this card is a 2-mana 3/1 menace. That means in your mono black aggro deck, probably gets through for combat damage. At least a turn or two if you play it on curve. If it doesn't get through and the opponent does double block it, it probably takes at least one creature out with it, which is fine. However, once you get later on in the game, that's where the card is dumb. The card is just a stupid magic card that you don't want to have to play against, because any 1/1, an eye twitch or something like that that has flying, your opponent just throws Blight of the Oni on. They have a flying menace 5/5. You kill the eye twitch, not only do they get the value from that, they just throw it on another guy. Why do I care? I just throw it on another dude next turn. I know it costs 4 mana, but we're getting kind of late in the game here, and I need to close this sucker out. And in my mono black aggro deck, the best way to do that is to continually force you to answer a 5/5 menace. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what the words on this card amount to. Oh, hello there. This isn't like a bit where we throw it to editing dev and then I do some kind of like shtick or like a joke or something like that. This is because I was editing. You see, this is the editing here. That's what editing looks like. And I just realized that I didn't do number 14 when I was sitting on the couch. I just didn't do it. So number 14 is Careful Cultivation. Don't look at the aura part of this card. I mean, I guess there's probably some situations you could pitch me on where the aura like might be relevant in a game or two, but mostly what this is, what it like actually is it's a 2-mana dork, right? Taps your green, but it both has flash and is uncounterable. I don't know how much the uncounterability is going to come in, but it's a thing. Having flash though, a flash mana dork is a game changer. A flash mana dork is huge. If you can't tell, I'm not in like charismatic presenter dev couch mode. This is just editing dev, and I guess at this point my brain has switched over to a different task, so I'm just like, card good. This card, it good. So play it. It's a good card. But number 13 is another equipment somehow that I think could be even better than Blade of the Oni, and that is Eater of Virtue. My voice always does that. When I say the name of the card, I can't say Eater of Virtue without, excuse me, without just that happening. I'm so sorry. One way or the other, though, the card is, I think, good. I shouldn't have to justify that too much. We get a legendary Bone Splitter. And, like, Bone Splitter is already, I think, good and still good enough in this day and age of Magic to be playable. A lot like Blade of the Oni, let's use the Eye Twitch example. Let's say I throw this on an Eye Twitch on turn 2, which I have the mana to do, by the way. I can start swinging over for 3 flying. I feel pretty good about that. My opponent kills it again. I get the Eye Twitch value. Thanks for the learn and all that. But then the next dude that I throw an Eater of Virtue on has +2/+0 and flying. So if I put it on a Menace guy, that guy dies, +2/+0 flying and Menace. This keeps happening. And there are definitely colors that it's best to play this card in, right? Like in white, you get a lot of really good abilities. You get double strike, indestructible, protection from colors. So it does go really well in some colors and not as well in others. But still, a lot of aggro decks can find use for this card no matter what creatures they're playing, because just 1 mana and 1 equip for +2/+0 is kind of just good enough. It's just kind of good enough on its own. We've seen in the past how good that can be. Now for number 12, I have just written down here dragons. Just dragons in the set. I'm not really sure how I would want to order these, because I think they're all kind of good in the same way. Like they, I think they kind of balance these dragons' power levels very nicely, but if I had to order them, which I guess is part of my job, I would go Kairi, who I do like. Kairi's not a bad one. Atsushi, still a good dragon, right? It's a fine dragon. But then we get into the really good ones, like Kira is probably more than fine. And then AO. I think AO is actually kind of a sleeper. But then when I decided to put dragons on this list, just as its own entry, I took AO off the sleepers list, but it was there. I think AO is actually kind of one of the best white creatures, in at least the best 5-mana white creature in Standard. I honestly stand by that. And the best one is Junji. Definitely. I don't think there's any argument there. I mean, you can like other dragons more than Junji, don't get me wrong, but I think the Junji is probably the best one from a competitive standpoint. Off of a Deadly Dispute and a Shambling Ghast or something, you can play this Junji on turn 3, and if your opponent decides to kill it, they have to waste your removal spell and then discard 2 cards. And depending on what's in graveyards, you might instead just get something really juicy. You can grab something from any graveyard with a Junji. That seems nice. Just a pretty sick card. And there are going to be times where you really don't mind sacking your Junji to a Deadly Dispute or something like that just to get this value. So, I don't know, probably the one I like the most, but all of them look pretty good. At number 11, our first Planeswalker, a wild Planeswalker, appears, and it's Tezzeret this time. Yeah, worst Planeswalker in the set, I guess. If you want to be a pessimist, you could look at it that way, but it's still number 11. It's the honorable mention for the top 10 in a set full of really good cards, so I do like Tezzeret a lot. This could actually generate its casting cost in mana value for you over the first turn cycle it's in play, if you have two artifacts that both, activate for 2 mana. Again, this can, over the course of a few turn cycles, technically generate an absurd amount of mana for you just with its passive ability. But, of course, it draws cards. It animates artifacts forever. A lot of people are missing that about its second ability. The artifact just becomes a 4/4. It's not till end of turn. It's just forever. So it's pretty good. And then the ultimate's nothing to sneeze at either. The ultimate's great. But just the, +1 draws. Second ability protects itself by making a decent meaty guy. And the passive ability is really good, all on a 4-mana Planeswalker. I will take that. That's a pretty good package. Why am I sitting here talking about Tezzeret's package? Let's look at number 10. That's right. We're starting the top 10. I hope you're ready. With a spicy one, guys. This one was on the sleepers list. I decided it's in no way is this card a sleeper. People are talking about it. And then it was in the honorable mentions, and I was like, no, stick by your convictions, Dev. You need to put this card at a place on the list that really shows how good you personally think this card is. Don't let it be another Hydroid Krasis where you put it at number 12, knowing it's number 1, and it ends up being the best card in the set. Don't let it happen to you again. So I'm going to make number 10 Colossal Sky Turtle. If there was a split card, 3 mana at instant speed on the one side to restock a card from your graveyard. Instant speed. And then on the other side, 2 mana instant speed to bounce a thing. I would say that card's kind of playable. I'd say just by itself, that card is playable. This has a third hidden mode on it that you may not have noticed. And that's the giant flying turtle with Ward. It's the Cynic Sky Swallower that all these cool uncounterable spells are stapled to. This is a giant reanimatable guy that puts itself in the graveyard. All of its channel abilities, just like all channel abilities, are instant speed and uncounterable. And I think just having these two abilities on a card, even without it being stapled to a giant stupid tortoise, is probably good enough. But the fact that occasionally, every now and again when the game stalls out, you can play a giant 6-power flyer, again, non-zero amount of times, it's going to be super relevant. So I do think, again, unequivocally, undisputably, that this is one of the best cards in the set. But maybe I just identify with it because I, too, am giant and a bit slow. If that I had wings like you, turtle. Anyway, what am I doing? Let's move to number 9, which is Secluded Courtyard. Usually I don't put lands that produce mana colors. Why am I doing that voice now? On these lists, I usually put them in the honorable mentions, even if they're some of the best cards. Like when shock lands show up in a set, they should be number 1. I just put them in the honorable mentions. This, I actually feel like it's going to affect Standard in a lot of interesting ways. I think the card is cooler than it even looks, and it looks pretty freaking cool, being able to have a land that does this for multiple tribal decks right now in this format is going to be important for a lot of the decks in this set. These ninja decks they're trying to take off, the samurai and warrior decks perhaps, but even other decks in Standard, rogues and vampires and stuff like that could really, really use a card like this, and it gives us a reason to not specifically only play mono-colored aggro, and we need every reason we can get, because mono-white and mono-green are really, really strong decks right now, and they're only stronger after these recent bans. So we have to have a reason to want to play, these multicolored tribal aggro decks, and I think this gives us a really good reason to want to do that. Number 8 is the Invoke Cycle. Again, I feel like I should probably order these, very likely, but they're all kind of decent. I think that the white, let's say the blue one. Let's say the blue one is the worst, which is saying something because it's a really good card. That's a fantastic Magic card. It really is. It's no treachery, but it's a good card. And then I guess the black one, I think the black one, and then the white one, almost certainly, and then the green one, and then the red one. That's what we'll do. We'll do that. I think actually the red one is far and away the best of all of these. I really think the red one is something special. It's instant speed. It's a good piece for burn decks to finish the game off. It's a cool piece for control decks because like at instant speed you can counter a spell and play a burn spell or something out of your graveyard. There's a lot of cool things you can do with that. The card allows you to ignore timing restrictions, so you could like counter a spell, cast an expressive iteration. And I do think the card is playable in red-blue because you have access to like Goldspan Dragon. That makes your treasures pop for, 2 of a color. That makes it way easier to cast these. Like, they're all pretty good, but the red one is, to me, just head and shoulders amazingly, just well above all the other ones on the list, and is very much, to my mind at least, the most likely to see standard play. Number 7 is Aunt Tammy, because we all have an Aunt Tammy. I do. I literally have an Aunt Tammy. Got in a fight with her at Christmas and all that, but Aunt Tammy right here is much kinder than my aunt. The completed sage, even being completed. Sure, she's a nicer lady. But anyway, I'm just like trash talking my family members in my YouTube video. She don't watch this, but anyway. There's a reason Tammy is up here at number 7. I guess, again, you want to be pessimistic. Second worst Planeswalker in the set. Yeah, she's in the top 10. I think that the -X on this is going to be key to the card seeing play and, like, the reason that it sees play. There's also the range of playability. I like versatility. And I especially like when we get versatility in this form, right? We have 2 different ways of casting the card. Really, 3 different ways of casting the card, considering that's hybrid mana. So there's that. But, once it does hit, you can trade, you can -X it and, like, get something huge out of your graveyard and still have a Planeswalker. It just seems unbelievable. In the meantime, her protection ability is actually pretty good, and the ultimate is on the card, but mostly that X ability I think is going to make this card super playable. Again, if there's a Bant or Sultai, like mid-range / control, or like a hybrid of the 2 or something like that, I think this card sees all of the play. I guess what I'm saying is in the right standard, this Tamiyo could go to the moon. But let's move on. So awful. How am I a content creator? Let's move on to number 6, which is just Ninja. This is like the biggest cheat on the entire list. I'm sorry about that, but if I didn't just do it this way, this list probably would be a top 50. I mean, there's a bunch of really good Ninja in this set. Like Nashi. I think Nashi has the potential to actually be one of the best cards in the set. Again, almost ended up on the sleepers list, but I just kind of decided to do this instead. But if there's one Ninja that I want to talk about for standard playability, it's Nashi. Free cards are really good, but aside from that, taking away cards is awesome too. So Biting Palm Ninja looks like one of the more playable Ninja in the entire set. But that's not all, right? But wait, there's more. There's also the Ninja that's trying to steal a fish. She makes treasure tokens for you whenever 1 or more Ninja or Rogues get through for combat damage. That could be very good for making dumb starts on the play. But speaking of dumb starts on the play, there's like Covert Technician, a card people aren't talking about enough. If you slam this on turn 2 with Ninjutsu and slam like a 2-drop artifact creature along with it, 4 mana value on turn 2, I think you're going to be doing pretty good that game. So, and that's just some of the Ninja in this set. There's a ton of playable Ninja in this set, and I would not be surprised if mono blue or blue black Ninjas was the new blue-black Rogues, and we all hate it 2 weeks from now. But for now, we need to acknowledge that Ninja are good. Number 5 is a card you probably expected to see on the list somewhere, but like not all the way up here at number 5. Number 5 is Light Paws. He just keeps climbing his way up here, man. Like, he was in the honorable mentions at first, but just the more I think about this card, the more I'm like, no, this card is super good. Like, just put it in your top 10 and shut up. Because you know how good this card is. Like, it really does read super sick to me, and I'm not sure it reads that good to most other Magic players. But the free value that this can generate in multiple ways, like I don't have to put the aura on Light Paws. I can put it on something else and then go put something on Light Paws. I can go get something that costs the same as the thing I just cast and just throw it on Light Paws. Like, I don't know. Explain to me how that's not good. Number 4, again, how is it all the way up here? It's number 4. It's in the top 10, and it's north of number 5. Number 4 is Reckoner Bankbuster. I cannot tell you how excited I am to play with this card. It's in my mind, just a better Maze Mind Tome. Right? You know, it even gives you a thing to crew it once, you know, it can't draw cards anymore. It gives you a thing to crew it. Maze Mind Tome just gained you 4 life when it was done drawing you cards. This is a Maze Mind Tome that technically makes 2 bodies. It's a Maze Mind Tome that draws you a bunch of cards and then swings 4. Come on, man. This is, to me, easily one of the better cards in the set. Maze Mind Tome was already a card that saw a ton of play back in its day, but this, I think, again, is just a better version, not strictly better, but a better version in most game states, so it's easily going to be one of my favorite cards of the set. I can't apologize for it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I can't apologize. But at number 3, and you might be wondering where the other Planeswalkers in the set are. Here we go. Number 3 is Kaito Shizuki. This card would not be anywhere near as good if it didn't phase out the first turn it was in play. But it does, so it's stupid. I honestly think that makes the card, the fact that it effectively guarantees that it will get to the next turn. You know, you're able to plus it, possibly just free and clear draw a card if you've attacked that turn. Or just make a guy. Like, both of those are really good abilities. Like, both of those are phenomenal abilities. Again, you're just guaranteed, nearly, to untap on your next turn, have this guy on the battlefield. That is extremely powerful for a Planeswalker, when a lot of Planeswalkers are made or not made on their ability to stay on the battlefield the turn after you play them. And this guy, again, virtually guarantees that you do that. So I think this is not only one of the best Planeswalkers in the set, but one of the better Planeswalkers that we've seen in a really long time. But it's not the best, because number 2 is the Wandering Emperor, the last Planeswalker in the set, and yeah, for Standard at least, I think the best one. For one, it's really cool to get all this lore on the Wanderer. We all wanted that, you know, but aside from that, this isn't really a lore channel. Aside from that, the function of the card is unbelievable. Yet again, you do not want to be swinging into 4 untapped mana. You know, it's like when Restoration Angel was a thing, or Settle the Wreckage was a thing. You just cannot swing into 4 untapped mana. Your opponent might exile that guy and then have a Planeswalker on their next turn. If you swing with a small dude, they might just make a 2/2, block it, and then make another 2/2 on their turn. If you don't do anything, maybe EOT, they'll just play the Wanderer and make a 2/2. That's not good either. You know, maybe if they have creatures out and you think you have a profitable attack, they play the Wanderer, give one of their dudes a +1/+1 counter, and blow you out. There's just so many ways that attacking into 4 untapped mana, 2 of which is white, can just murder you in this format. And there were already some decent flash options at 4 mana. There are other flash options at 4 mana in this set that don't look half bad, but I don't think that any white deck is going to be running into those options because they have this as the ultimate, 4 mana flash white card. Yeah, best Planeswalker in the set, and if it weren't for all these pesky lands, the best card in the set. But obviously you've guessed number 1 by now. I have to cheat one more time here, but I don't think that you'll begrudge me too much. It's the legendary lands, thus proving that if I often didn't make these honorable mentions, they probably would be number 1. But in this case, I couldn't make these honorable mentions. They're kind of spells. But it's all about the opportunity cost this time out. These are untapped lands. So unless you're playing snow, I guess, there is just absolutely zero reason to not put these cards in your deck. They virtually have to go into your Magic the Gathering deck, almost no matter what format you're playing. If you have the room for basics, take a basic out, put at least one of these in. I guess I'm tasked with rating these 2, I suppose. So I guess the red one is the worst one. Everyone was correct. I still don't think the red one is bad, but the red one is very likely the worst one. The black one is so-so, but almost certainly slots into mono black decks day 1 in standard. The blue one is good. The blue one is very, very good in a lot of ways. The green one, I'm going to put at number 2, which is upsetting everyone because it's like $35. And then I think the white one is actually best, especially for standard play, because look, I've justified this before, but let me put it this way. The green one in standard isn't going to be as good for green decks because those decks still have to play Blizzard Brawl. That means they still have to play Snow. That means putting this land in your deck is a real penalty. However, the white decks, They don't have to play Snow if they don't want to. They don't. That's not a thing they have to do. Faceless Haven's gone. They probably don't want to play Snow. So they can put this into their mana base, and it's less of a liability. Mono Green also has fewer legendary creatures, all in all. In White, you might have a legendary 2-drop. Thalia. You might drop Thalia on turn 2 and decrease the cost of the White legendary land to, 2 mana from 3. Because you played your Thalia so early. Mono Green doesn't really have the ability to do that. So again, I think if we're talking about Standard specifically, the white land is better than the green land. Even in other formats, I think you can make a case that the white one is better than the green one. Having a removal spell that has 0 opportunity cost to it, it's part of your mana base in your mono white deck, good enough. But then we start talking about having a removal spell in your blue-white control deck. Right, or your mono white mid-range deck, or your Abzan mid-range deck, or something like that, Basically, the white one and the green one can go in aggro decks, control decks, mid-range decks, combo decks. It really doesn't matter what kind of deck we're talking. We can put these cards in. So these are just good, like no matter what. And they all deserve, in my opinion, their hefty price tags, especially considering you probably shouldn't buy more than one of them a piece. I don't think you should play more than one of these in most decks. Just throwing that out there. But you do want one for damn near every deck that you ever build. So they are the most relevant, impactful cards in the set. They will impact the most formats of any cards in the set. And even then, even though, these are going to be cards played in Modern and Legacy, very likely, they're still going to impact Standard on the level that they are definitely the #1 cards in the set, hands down. Or should I say, lands down. I shouldn't. That would have been a dumb joke. But this video has been full of dumb jokes. Thank you for still watching my content. I don't know how you put up with me. But that's all I got for this one. That's not every good card in the set. Far from it. But those are my top 25. A couple honorable mentions sprinkled in. We're trying to do what we can. But just let me know if I missed anything. And if there's anything that you expected to see here, but you didn't see, maybe check out the top 10 sleepers list. Perhaps what you seek is there. But just in case you've seen both videos or whatever, comment down there what I missed in this video, what would make your, top 25 list and all that stuff. I am interested to hear from you. What cards do you want to see play in this set? And what cards do you want to see us play on the Twitch streams? Let me know that down there. If there's like a favorite card in the set, a card that you think is a great build around, that you want to see something built around, that maybe you don't think enough people are paying attention to or whatever, just let me know down there and we'll play those decks on the Twitch stream. Aside from that, you can check out that. You can check out Twitch if you want. You can also check out Patreon. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing a bunch of polls to determine what deck techs we do first, what video essays we do, all that kind of stuff, what content we focus on. All those polls are going to take place on Patreon, and it's only $1 a month to get in. So check that out if you want. Link in the description. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter for takes, stuff about cards, when I'm going to put videos out, when I'm going to stream. There's reasons to follow me on Twitter, like 3 or 4, and that's about it. But they exist, so do that if you want to. But I got to get to editing this thing. It's probably 6 hours long, so let's go ahead and get out of here. I will catch you cats later. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.
Well, if you lose your one and only, there's always room here for the lonely. Watch your broken dreams dance in and out of the beams of a neon moon. Watch your